Hello, welcome to Encounters. My guest today is Professor Boonlert Supadhiloke from Thailand. The first time that I met Professor Boonlert was in the early 1980s, so almost 30 years ago, when he was instrumental in getting me to Thammasat University, the university he was then the dean of, on a UNESCO project. And since we have stayed in touch on and off, so to speak, but I know that you have wandered off in different directions since. You did some work for the Thai government at the PR department. You also spent some time for FAO in Pakistan, so took an international agency position. And then some time later, I heard that you were the media affairs officer in the Thai embassy in Washington, D.C. And now you're back to Bangkok, teaching at Bangkok University. So it's an interesting career blended by and on and off academic, policy-based, some professional assignments. This, of course, must be very satisfactory to you. You have really been able to absorb and to engage yourself in different areas and in different regions of the world.
Thank you very much, Professor Jan. First of all, I would like to thank you for bringing me here, and also for inviting me to appear on your program. Thank you very much. I appreciate everything that you have done for us.
Okay, that's a pleasure. If I may go back to the early days when we met in 1980 or 82, you were emphasizing rather new concepts in those days, the right to communicate, and you wanted to give it a Thai or an Asian flavor. I recall the concept of kit pen, which you brought to the international discussion. The right to communicate since has been floating around, but has never made it into the mainstream discourse, not in the media, but not even in the academic area. So is there a reason for this?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for you have such a good memory. Yes, you were right. I did that because, I came to study in USA. I spent a lot of years, about 6 years, to learn about communication. I'm glad that I came to the right university. I learned a lot. But I still, when I went back home, I still would like to do something to find out a theory, communication theory or research, that I do believe that it also, the knowledge, they came from the East or from the Oriental. But I learned in the West, so I gained anyhow. So I was thinking at the time that there should be and there must be a kind of communication theory or research that originate in the East, especially in my own country. So,
and what kind of theory is this?
Yeah, the theory, when I look at that, I think the culture very, very important in the East. And if you take a look at the East, the culture, the dominant culture, I would admit that even the Thai culture, it has been dominated not only by India but also from China, mm-hmm. and many other. And of course, we have our indigenous culture. Mm-hmm. So I do believe in Buddhism and also in other, but I don't take Buddhism as a religion. Mm-hmm. I take it as also as a culture.
Okay.
So as a culture, so I went through many literature. I read a book. I talked to many people. Then it came to my mind that Buddhism also has some reference to communication. And one aspect I was interested that it was about the freedom of the press. Mm-hmm. Or that what I really cherish. I think freedom of the press or freedom of information or freedom of expression, I think that was very important. And that's what I did believe. Without freedom, I don't think anyone can do anything, even in study. So I found it in Buddhism.
But from a Western perspective, freedom of the press is always associated with the right and the liberty of the producers of media to say and do whatever they think is right. While in an Asian context, I sense that it's also related to responsibilities, social responsibilities of the media, but also the rights of the people to be properly informed. And that's where the concept of right to communicate comes in, because it's much more a two-way process where the emphasis is more put on the consumers, the audience of messages, rather than the producers of messages.
I do agree with you that when we talk about the freedom of the press, we tend to think that related to the media or to the press, and I agree that it should be more responsible. There's a two-way, but I believe that freedom of the press also it related to the people, because the media represent the people, the individual. So I take it that freedom of the press is not so much different from what we call freedom of expression. That would be, or free speech in a case, that is individual. So I do believe in the individual freedom of expression or the free speech that originate in Buddhism, because the main concept or the precept of Buddhism, what we call the Four Noble Truths,
Right.
that originate from the suffering, that what we call in our religion is a tuk, that is suffering, and then once we have a suffering, we were born suffering, so we have to find a solution, samuthai, that the cause of the suffering, which in fact originate from the greed, from the lust, from the craving, something like that. Then what is related to freedom is that Lord Buddha, he taught that we have to be free, but free, it means that free from the lust, from the greed, from the craving. That's what we call freedom. So our concept, even though we call freedom, is completely different from the West.
Completely different from the West.
That's what I do believe, that this is individual freedom, freedom from the suffering. And then he found the solution that it lies to what we call the right path. That's what we call the four
noble truths.
Yeah, it's not the four; it's eightfold path. So in that eightfold path also include what we call the right speech. So the right speech, Lord Buddha, they emphasize that we have to tell the truth. We must not lie, and many other things. So that's what I found, that this should be the heart of communication, and it might be related to community theory. Then I try to explicate the concept that's what I call the right to communicate.
Right.
So I think the right to communicate is the right of everyone. They must have the right. So I try to emphasize that it's not only the freedom. Freedom is not the right. It should be the right of the people to have access to the information, to the truth, the right to have freedom of expression, the right to have freedom of access. So I think that when we talk about the right, I think it's more important than we talk about the freedom.
Okay.
So I think, so what I found from my own experience, that I throughout my life, I myself I was born in a village in the northern part of the country. Right, yeah. Then I felt that many people, they were even more unfortunate than I was. They were denied the right. They were denied knowledge. They were denied information. That's why I'm very interested in this, the right to freedom of information, or the right to freedom of opinion. That's what I am thinking.
In your opinion, rights should be social rights rather than, but at the same time you say it's an individual right of
I think it's
of
both.
a person.
It's both.
It's a combination of both.
Yeah, it's both in terms of communication. If in communication, it originates from individual right, but in terms of communication, communication is social process. It must be a social right also, because it's our own right. But at the same time, when we exercise our right, we have to take into consideration other people thinking, the thought and the constraint, and many other also.
So if I bring it down to a concrete situation of your own country, how does this manifest itself? Are people these days being able to make use of their rights, and do they find their rights represented in, let's say, the media as ways of communicating?
In Thailand, I would say that the situation has been improving, but still I have to admit that no, the Thai people really, we did not enjoy the full right or the full freedom of expression.
So it's
because there are many factors.
Right.
There are many factors that they curtail or they what you call that they obstruct.
Right.
This right. To mention particularly the political factors. The political factor in Thailand, we have many constraints that they did not allow the people to express themselves, to express their view, or to enjoy the freedom of expression. And there are many other factors also, but some factors are very untouchable and very sensitive that I cannot say in public.
Yes, I understand.
So that's why I say, that's why the country, Thailand has not been really fully democratic as we expect. I mean that the people they should have participate in the civic activity or in political activity. Because of the freedom.
Right. So if we summarize it in a way, the right to communicate and the potential capacity of people to communicate freely and in the right way is still very much an ideal, an objective which is not yet accomplished or met.
Not yet.
But at the same time, you have moved in your own writings and deliberations in the direction of painting that and designing that potential new kind of concept by adopting it from others, like the king who came up with the concept of self-sufficiency. You have been writing about the gross national happiness index, which is a concept developed in Bhutan and now being promoted in other parts of the world as well. So how do you combine these new ideas with Buddhism and with the original perspective on the right to communicate?
I was so happy, that when I developed my own thinking, my own conceptualization about the right to communicate, it almost by accident also that I came across the writing, especially you mentioned from Bhutan, but we have the general happiness index or happiness. And it also happened that, Bhutan is a Buddhist kingdom.
Right.
And also, I hope not by accident that Thailand also a Buddhist kingdom. And His Majesty the King also, he came up with a theory quite some time ago, more than almost 20 years ago.
Right.
That's what at the time he called the new theory. But later it was known as sufficient economy. And this sufficient economy, it is the philosophy of His Majesty the King is based mainly on Buddhism also, Buddhist concept. That's on what we call the middle path.
Right.
The middle path. So what is the main concept of the sufficient philosophy is that we must be moderate and also be reasonable. At the same time, take a risk, take precaution against the risk. So this is a kind
live in harmony with nature and with
harmony
neighbors.
with the nature. So if we follow the Buddhism, this is a concept, the middle path, be moderate, be reasonable, and against the risk, then we can achieve what we call the ideal is to have a happiness, happiness in life, in harmony with the environment. So so this is a very, 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 very important philosophy, and I think the Thai people, what happened is that sometimes we follow the Western model and Western concept, so we did not know ourselves and we forget the culture, we forget the environment, we forget our culture. So I think this should be a good philosophy, a good principle, and I'm glad that it has been implemented throughout the
Yes, and
country
it's being
for
tried
some time.
out in different parts of the world at the moment.
Yeah.
But of course, as we started off by saying, it's always constrained by the actuality, by the reality of political and economic and other
That's
factors.
right. Especially, I'm glad that you mentioned that it is now not in line with what we call the populist
Right.
philosophy or the policy.
Right.
And the populist policy is just different from this sufficiency economy. But I hope that in the long run, the people will learn from experiences and they will come realize it. So it is a globalization era. By being global, it is both positive and negative also.
Right.
So
You made reference to, and you emphasized this, that it is also based on the culture of a country. Now, people have vague associations when they hear Thailand being mentioned, and also Thai culture. And some of these associations are rather negative, others are positive, generous, welcoming people, hospitable people. What is the core of the Thai culture?
I thank you for asking me this, because I myself, I know that I'm really from the village, so I learned a great deal about the Thai culture. I would say that by Thai culture, by the indigenous culture, the Thai people are just like a Chinese or many other people in Asia. We are very much what we call collectivism. We are very kind people. We like to help other people. We are the people that we forgive. We know how to forgive. We know how to help other people. So, and also we respect the elder people. So
Generous.
very generous,
Yes.
very hospitable, very smiling, very friendly.
But
I think this is a very, very good culture. But it exists mainly in the rural areas, in the village. The people like me, like this, I was raised among this culture. But when we come to Bangkok or to the big city, you know, it's really different.
So what has happened there?
What happened is that what's going on now, that as I said, you know, Thailand sometimes we have adopted the values or the concept from somewhere else, maybe also some from the West or some other countries. Then we forget our own culture. We forget our indigenous value, the cultural value. So that's what I say, that this would be very dangerous for the country, for the society. Just like we talk about democracy also. Yes, I would like to see Thailand to be democratic, but not as democratic as in USA or other countries. That is impossible. It must
Why
be
is it
democratic on our
impossible?
own culture.
So what would be a Thai version of democracy?
Thai democracy, I think that, as I said now, that we do not achieve democracy because the people, I think, not only Thai people, they are poor. I think that that's not the main obstacle, but I think the knowledge, the awareness,
Education.
yeah, the communication, I think is very important one. The Thai people must be conscious about democracy, and also they must really, as you said, you know, they must, I don't want to say power, to empower, but they must be very conscious. They must know that what is good for them, or what you can call empowerment. So unless the people have been empowered to realize their right, is their right to communicate, right to participate, and have knowledge. And I think, and of course they must have a freedom. So unless they have that kind of knowledge or the right, I think it would be very difficult to be democratic. And I would say that the people, especially in the rural areas, they have been misled. I would say that has been misled by the power holder, because I think freedom sometimes it should be given, it should be promoted, not from the rural people, but those who have power, the ruler mostly. I think it's a time that they should think in terms of the happiness of the people.
Right. But that's a bit of a contradiction. On the one hand, you have a very generous social kind of culture where people take care of each other and care for each other. At the same time, there is that hardship as a result of development, as a result of modernization, which makes them more competitive and conflict oriented. And as a culture, that of course starts coloring the relationships of people. Now, we normally don't talk about this, but Thai people can also be very violent. If they cannot take it any longer, then they will rely on violent means or trying to avoid a soft kind of communication process. So that element of collectivism can also turn around into an individualist kind of outing, and it's to be seen what will eventually grow out of this, given all the other factors which you have touched upon and identified. So it's in a way an open question. I don't have the answer. Can you give us a glimpse?
I can, thank you. I understand it clearly. I myself understand why the Thai people have become violent. I would say that now, even though Thai people are very kind, very hospitable and collectivism, but that is the majority of the people. What I can understand now is that, the majority, the rural poor mostly, they have been exploited. They have been exploited, especially by the ruler, by the ruling classes. So they realized that it was not fair, or it was not just for them. So I don't think that they could tolerate anymore. So violence taking place out of the exploitation. So I don't want to say that this should be a class conflict or something like that. But I hope that in the long run, there should be understanding by the ruling classes that it was the right of the people, the majority of the people, that they have the right to participate, to enjoy the privilege, whatever they deserve. Right. So I would say that in the past, these people, the disadvantaged, the marginalized, the rural poor, they have really been exploited. That's why I sympathize with them sometimes. But I think that there must be a solution. That the solution should come from within the country.
Yes, and a solution, going back to the theme of Buddhism, has to come out of the culture. And so the idea that this is more in line with the culture, with the Buddhist roots, the principles which were being promoted by the king, that's also your
forgiveness
way to find an opening into the current stalemate, so to speak. Right?
Yeah.
There is also one thing which people not always reflect upon, is that the spirit of Thailand is the emphasis, as you pointed out at the beginning, the spirit of freedom, individual freedom, but also collective freedom. Thai people are very proud people, also proud that they never been colonized, that they never have been living under foreign occupation and powers, and that also colors the culture in a tremendous way. People are not servile, although they may give the impression to foreigners to be servile, to be generous, to be gentle, etc. Now, we just passed through a conference on U.S.-Chinese relationships, and you came here to present the perspective of Thailand. Now, given all of this, what is the conclusion of your country, your part in this moving of different powers, the shifting of powers? In your paper you said, okay, we see what's going on, we will always be in the outsider, but we have to adjust to the newcomer as well as the power that is or that was.
Oh, I'm very glad. I should thank you again that you give me a chance to come here. I benefit a lot. So, what I'm really, really impressed is that, you know, when I wrote my paper, unexpectedly, I found out that we deal with the future of the China-US relation in the post-crisis world. Mm-hmm. So I touch on really the global economic crises. And in fact, the crisis, it started also in my country in 1997. That's what we call the Tom Jam Kung crisis, or the financial crisis. And later, 10 years later, in the year 2007, now it came to USA, what we call the subprime loan or the crisis.
So Thailand had an avant-première, so to speak,
yes.
Something which happened and which has repeated itself now here in the US and as a result worldwide.
Yeah, and some analysts, economic analysts, they said that, you know, there was an analogy of what happened in Thailand before and in US, but Thailand and other countries, especially China also, they benefit because they learn from the lesson. So they learn from the lesson that took place in Thailand. So they succeed in adjusting themselves. So they recover from the crisis very fast. And apart from that, they also rose to power, like in China also.
Right.
But at the same time, in the US also, they try hard. They suffer a little bit, but still they know how to solve the problem. So what I found is that as a result, in the post-crisis world, just like in US and China, I analyzed newspaper, Bangkok Post and The Nation. I found that even though they have a long history of the conflict between the two countries, but after the crisis, because of the cultural value of the East also, like China, they do believe in what we call based on the Confucius religion, the belief. They did believe in harmony, in the balance, what we call cooperation.
Right.
So it was a good time for them that they realized that they have to cooperate. And China also, despite their rising power, they knew that they have to cooperate with USA. And USA also, like President Barack Obama, he said in the year 2009, and that the bilateral relation between China and USA very important and would shape the present century. And US was also willing to cooperate. So I found that the cultural value has a bearing.
Right. So you emphasize indeed the cultural values of each particular culture and country, and I'm sure that there are many people in this country who are also in line with compromising positions, negotiating positions. But what we see and hear these days in the media, the discussions between the main parties, etc., is rather conflict-oriented rather than consensus building. So it may well be that the cultural overtone or undertone of this country is slightly different compared to what seems to be your appreciation of Thailand and Asia in general.
Yeah, what we have saying that, you know, the sky will be clear after the rain.
Right.
Your conflict still going on, I would not deny that. But eventually, I think I do believe in cooperation, in a bilateral relationship. And that's what the media in Thailand, they emphasize and they offer. So I do believe that the relationship between US and China would be sound. Even now also, I think it's going well. And Asian countries like Thailand and other ASEAN countries also benefit from this improving relationship between the two powers. That's what we believe.
Okay, thanks for your advice and thank you for your interest.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that.